Okay, we are in chapter 9 of Mesilas Yesharim. We're going to talk about the detractors of Zrizus, right? So till now we talked about Zrizus, which is energy, right? To do things with energy, to start quickly and end quickly, right? Which was, again, we discovered it's a spiritual quality to be able to be unlazy, right? A person's natural physical heaviness is to be in status quo. Zrizus is about breaking that what is it called, inertia, right? Then we saw that there were different types of Zrizus, right? There's Zrizus, real Zrizus, where you're actively pursuing it, and then there's Zrizus where you're forcing yourself to be Zoris, but eventually it will get the motor running and the passions ignited. Then we saw how to acquire Zrizus, right, which was primarily focusing on God's goodness, and then the person will realize the indebtedness that he has to God. But then he explained what we realized at the end of last week is that there are three levels of motivators, just like there were three levels for Zrizus. For perfectionists, really, they don't need any additional motivation. The fact that they want to achieve perfection is going to be motivating enough, right? For middle level people, they're going to be motivated by Olam Haba, and then everybody else is going to be motivated by punishment, by losing their Olam Hazeh, right? So they're going to want to make sure to do things right because they don't want to have retribution in this world, or again. So I'm not sure when he spoke about that appreciation of God's goodness and the indebtedness to Him, was he speaking about the middle level, or is that also part of the lower level? That I'm not clear about. That's a little bit inconsistent, because in the end he seems to be saying that the middle level is Olam Haba, but this God's indebtedness is Olam Hazeh. He said if you're rich, you can be thankful for that. If you're healthy, you're thankful for that. Even if you're not, you could be thankful that God sustains you in whatever status you're in, right? This is all dealing with Olam Hazeh, right? And yet towards the end, when he talks about three levels, he says the third level is that he doesn't want to be embarrassed for Olam Haba, right, or whatever. He doesn't want to translate. It doesn't say it exactly like that, but he doesn't want to translate the embarrassment of Olam Hazeh into the Olam Haba system, right? Even though there is no, it's not the same jealousy, it's not the same embarrassment, but he doesn't want, right? He would apply. Okay. Anyway, so I'm not sure. Okay, so that part I'm not sure about. Okay, now we're up to what are the things that are detracting from Zrizus. So now again, so let's before we learn, let's think for a second to ourselves. What would we say? Okay, if somebody asked us, what are the detractors of Zrizus, what would we say? What would we come up with?
The animal self. The desires that are not aligned with I have something better to do now.
Yeah, logic.
What?
Logic.
Logic is a detractor to Zrizus?
Yeah.
Why?
You always come up with excuse.
You always come up with excuses. Interesting. Okay.
You don't just be lazy. They don't say you're lazy because of something, and you come up with something.
Right. So
Yeah, but is that logic?
Yeah, because you have to come up with it.
No, because his logic is supposed to. Isn't logic is what breaks you away from your biases, and wouldn't logic then be a way to acquire Zrizus, because it will uncover the fact that you're just being lazy, and so, real logic.
Yeah, it's like Jewish accounting. 2 plus 2, what you want it to be. It's up to you to which way to go. You got to put logic towards
But that's
right?
not logic.
Oh, that way. Yeah, you find a very logical explanation for everything.
I'm not.
If it's gonna hold,
Again, I
if it's
hear.
gonna hold my
So
final
that's
grounds, different
that's
story.
like you
But
know.
in your head, it's
I mean, you're
logical.
right in terms of more like emotional intelligence.
Yeah, like it's
Emotional, like there's logic, or we consider logic, but human logic is not just 2 + 2 = 4. You're right. Meaning human logic is like emotional intelligence, which is not as black, is never like black and white, right? It's more like you have to apply certain human way of thinking, right?
So,
Okay, but again, I think that there has to be a way for you to apply it correctly, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, so then I'm not sure if I agree with you that logic would be a detractor from Zrizus. I think we would like to believe that logic, it would always be a, what's the word? The thing that brings you closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
I say if
I would say.
if your goals
I mean,
are aligned,
you could misfire, sure, you could misfire, but I mean, I wouldn't call that to be a detractor. It's a possible detractor when it's misapplied or when it's misfired, but I don't know if I would say that in itself is a detractor.
Right.
So what would we say is a detractor? So you're saying the animal's self.
Right. When you
Meaning what? What is it
meaning
again?
you-
Without
you-
this using vague Hasidus terminology.
When you when the person picks something that is more fun, that is more attractive, that is more, rather than going out to do, letting this lady across the road, I'm gonna go eat a steak. That sounds a lot more fun, and it's gonna be greater mitzvah.
Okay.
Because once I eat the steak, I'm gonna use the logic that we just discussed.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm gonna be
I'm gonna
next
no.
time this lady crosses the street, I'm gonna do it with
No,
such
this-
Zrizus.
That's
Right,
not
exactly.
rationale.
Right.
There are
So,
two things.
so all this,
Right, okay,
so
right,
all
okay.
this is only possible when the person misaligns his bullseye with away from Hashem's bullseye. If those two are aligned, then the logic falls in place and everything becomes very clear. However, once
Right. Okay, I hear. So I mean, the only thing that I would say that you're right. If there's meaning Zrizus is not. Do you do a mitzvah or don't you do a mitzvah? Right. That was covered in Chovas Odom Ba'olomai. Right. Your obligation in this world. You already figured out you should do a mitzvah. The question is now, should I do it right away with full of passion, right, and full of energy, or should I just get it done and move on eventually on my schedule and my time, right? Zrizus really is the thing that says put my whole being into it, right? That's what Zrizus is. So meaning I'm agreeing with you that probably animal self would be it. Just an example, the way you said it would be slightly different. Not that you see a lady crossing and you're going to say, no, I'm going to have my steak now. No, that's not Zrizus. That's just not doing avodas Hashem. That's just disregarding a mitzvah.
all right, but
An
maybe-
example would be,
I'm gonna learn.
one
later,
second, let me
right?
just finish my let me just finish my whatever I'm doing. And
Right, and not later across the street.
Right.
I'm gonna go learn. I'm gonna learn later on once I'm finished with the barbecue.
right, there is. I remember reading years ago, and Rav Tzadok I think brings it. I think that's where I saw it. Rav Tzadok, I think, brings a tshuva from either he asked. I'm trying to think who asked who. I don't remember. So Reb Leibel Eger, right? You familiar with Reb Leibel Eger? You've heard of Rabbi Akiva Eger, right? Rabbi Akiva Eger had a grandson. I think it's his grandson. Pretty sure it's his grandson. Reb Leibel Eger. I think he's Reb Shlomo Eger's son. Reb Shlomo Eger is Rabbi Akiva Eger's son. I think Reb Leibel Eger is Reb Shlomo Eger's son, who became a Hasidic rabbi, a Talmud of, I think, Reb Simcha Bunu Pshischa. I think. Could be I'm already starting to mix things up. Right? So Reb Leibel Eger, if I'm not mistaken, was a rebbe in his own right, a Hasidic rebbe, and he was also a moil, and he was I think he was a moil, and he was often asked to be a sandik and a moil by a bris, but he said it would get him, he would have it'd take him so long, so many hours to work himself up to have the right kavana, to be ready to be a sandik and a moil, that would be like late in the afternoon or something like that when the bris would be. And he wanted to know if he was allowed to do this. because Zrizus Magdimin Lemitzvahs. The place where we talk about Zrizus Magdimin Lemitzvahs is by Bris Milah, where it should be done as early as possible in the morning. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is the question that he asked Rav Tzadok, if he's allowed to be, if he can allow himself to be honored with this kibbut of being a moil and a sandek, when he's going to delay the whole bris milah by so long. And I think, if I remember correctly, Rav Tzadok answered him, yes, you are allowed, because you're doing it as fast as possible, which is so long it takes you, but something along those lines, yeah. But the way I'm saying, you just gave that example. Okay, if he would have asked you, maybe you would have told him maybe different answer. Okay, now that we got our juices flowing, let's see what the Ramchal says. Hine, mafside has Zrizus. The detractors of Zrizus, heim magdile ha'atzala. They are the things that increase laziness. A beautiful line. Mafside has Zrizus, heim magdile ha'atzala. What detracts from Zrizus? The thing that increases laziness. Okay, so now again, before we move on, what increases laziness? What increases laziness? Right? So it's the same thing, right? Let's see. V'hagodol shebakulam, and the greatest one of them all. Right? So the greatest one of them all, right? Listen, reading carefully. The greatest one of them all was the greatest one of them all. Bakosha samenucha, seeking rest. Hagufnis, the physical rest. Vesinas hatorach, and hating toil. Vahavas hayedunim, and love of pleasures. Betashlam kol tna'ehim, in completion, in completion of all their conditions, meaning getting every pleasure possible in every way possible. I think that's how you translate that, right? So again, so it's one thing or three things. And what did, right? So again, so you're reading, gets great. V'hagodol shebekulam, the greatest of them all. In other words, the greatest of them all that increases laziness. What increases laziness? Desiring of rest, physical rest, hating toil, and love of pleasures. Now the truth is, seeking rest and hating toil, those that's like one and the same, no? They're just like, one is in positive, one is in negative. It's not the same thing. No? What way do you think they're different?
The Hatzalah. Have you ever observed a bunch of Hatzalah members during the call? When calls come in, they all grab the radio. If it's have to, they all go. But nobody jumps to be first one. They always say, okay, we'll see who goes first, who gets the bus, who has to write the paper. If I like the guy, not the guy. If a child, nobody thinks they all run. But if it's a regular call, you can see that they're sitting with the radio and listening who's going to be the first one. They're all ready to go, but they're waiting to go to the first one. Maybe they don't have to go if there's enough people going. So they're not lazy. They're ready to do it. It needs to be done, so they'll do it. But
So which one is that?
So it's not like they don't want to do it. They want to do it. But if there is a possibility not to do it, why not? So they don't contradict exactly.
So which one are you describing? You're describing seeking rest, or you're describing not hating toil?
It's not the same. Like hating rest is one thing, hating the others. They don't hate the job. They want to do it. So they stand up for it. They're ready to go. But at the same time, they're not jumping.
So you're saying, so you're understanding them as levels then? Yeah. You could, one level is loving rest. That's one level. The other level is hating toil. You can not necessarily hate toil, but you're not necessarily ready to give up your rest completely.
If there is an option that somebody else do it, why not? But if nobody else, I'm ready to go.
Right, but that's still one thing, just different layers of one thing, as opposed to, for example, the third thing, which is loving of physical pleasures, right? Haidonim, which means like enjoyment, right? It's not in the same category altogether. Sure that's a very different category.
No, I'm sure same call comes on 9/11, FDNY. They're also probably waiting, but they're waiting because they really do want to go. Those guys are sign up for it. They're ready to go. They don't hate it. Just, is it going to avoid it? Fine.
I think these
So
are
us guys
different
going because we
categories.
do the job, because okay, fine, now I'm going to work. Because it's not the same level.
Okay, I
But
hear
the same
again.
response. Like
What
maybe
is
somebody
toil
else.
here? What toil are we talking about?
Just work.
I mean,
Any toil?
Torah,
Do
Torah,
work.
tirchad, right? Just
Doing work.
effort,
Yeah, doing.
effort.
Avodas
Some people just
Avodas
don't
Hashem,
like
avodas
effort.
something else altogether.
I mean, we're speaking, of course, in regards to avodas Hashem, but it's a certain. These are certain characteristics. I think these are certain human characteristics. Some people don't like to put in effort, right? Or all people don't like to put in effort, but there are different. Just some people are like,
More tolerant to effort. Some people are.
you know. Actually, I don't know if I would say that all people don't like to put in effort. There are some people who are just genuine workaholics, let's say, and they like being busy bodies and whatnot, right? But most people are not loving effort.
Right. So that
Certainly
I
we in
think
the-
that's
But
very
again,
key.
but there's a difference, right?
Right,
I mean,
that's-
to me, hating effort and loving rest is one category.
I don't know. To me, it seems like two different things.
How are they two different things?
You can hate toil, but you can still you force yourself and you toil because you think that's the right thing to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that all you want to do is chill out. I mean, maybe you don't want to toil, you want to rest. I mean, you don't want to be working overtime. You want this thing to be a little easier. Okay, that would.
I understand,
be
but again,
but
I
it
think you're
doesn't-
saying very similar to what he's
doesn't
saying,
necessarily-
is
doesn't-
that they're just different levels of the same category. While loving pleasure, right, idunim, to me, again, there are three things that he mentioned,
Mhm.
right? One is
Right.
seeking rest, hating toil, and loving enjoyments, right? So to me, are those three things that are one on the same level, different levels of the same thing, or are they three totally different categories? So what?
I think it's three
But what you
different.
said before is not
No.
three different categories.
No.
To me, I heard the same thing, just different levels of the same thing. That's why, and I'm hearing that from Alex also. Same thing, just different levels of the same thing. In truth, it makes sense. It makes sense that these three things are the same thing, just different levels. Why does it make sense? Because remember, he said in the beginning about Godol Shebekulam, and the greatest one of them all, and then he mentions three things. So, which clearly he understands that these three things are one. But to me, I see how the first two are one. I don't see how the third one is one. The fact that I'm like, if I like a good steak, right? That's the third category. Me liking a good steak, to me, I never put them together as the same thing as me liking to sleep in the afternoon and not be bothered. Those are two different. To me, those are two different worlds. A person who likes a good steak actually can be very energetic to get that steak. He can be if he
Right.
likes a good steak, he can spend 3 hours in the afternoon,
He's gonna travel across the
preparing
world
it.
to eat
He's
the
going to
steak.
do it so that he could be very active to get the idun, the pleasure that he desires. Mashenkin, a person who just likes a good rest, he just wasn't bothered. I don't want your steak. I don't want anything. Just don't bother me. Okay, there's very different things.
So number three is it sounds clearly it's a separate category. Now the number one, the desire for physical relaxation,
Right.
and the hate of the toil. I also feel are different categories. There's
So,
people.
in what way?
There's people whose sole motivator is the desire to chill out. The
Okay,
ultimate
so that's the
comfort.
first guy.
That's the first guy.
Okay.
His ultimate desire is to be in comfort.
Okay.
He does everything to be in comfort. Another guy he's hating the toil. There you have different categories of hating the toil. You can hate the toil, but not necessarily be adored.
I understand, but isn't that just the flip side of loving rest? It's just the flip side, just a different. Okay, so he's not as extreme as the guy who loves rest. It's just he doesn't hate. He doesn't, love rest so much that he wants to do nothing. But he doesn't love putting in effort. He's just there in a different. Again, it's the same scale. He's on the same track, just in a different place on the same track. I don't see how it's a different human experience, right? It's just one is positive, one is says in the positive, one is negative.
Maybe the desire for physical.
But I think somehow, if anything, I mean, again, sounds like these are three things that are one, because again, clearly in Ramchal's eyes, because he's V'agodol shebekulam hu, and then he lists three things, right? So clearly, these three things are one, and there's something he says over here on the bottom. So again, I'm not sure if I agree with this whole note here on the bottom, but the bottom note is saying that Ramchal is not talking about really these three things in particular. Okay. So the bottom asks a question. Again, I don't appreciate this question so much. He says that laziness is not a detractor from Zrizus. It is, and it's not Zrizus, right? Laziness is the opposite of Zrizus. It's not a detractor from Zrizus. Okay, that's the question. Again, I don't appreciate this question because that's splitting hairs in my opinion, but whatever. So the answer that the bottom gives is that why is it not a detractor from? So why? Of course, it's not a detractor from Zrizus. But what is a detractor from Zrizus, according to Ramchal, is really what he's going to build up is that it's the attitude towards life. It's what we're talking about is an attitude towards life. Is your attitude towards life chill, or is your attitude towards life work? That's really what Ramchal is saying, according to the bottom. Okay, and so that's what it means, these three things. It's not about really love of pleasure, and it's not really about love of rest, and it's not really about hating toil. Those are just three ways to explain. I just want to relax. I'm looking for self-indulgence. It's the attitude of self-indulgence. Okay, could be. I mean, it could be. I just somehow it doesn't speak to me this idea exactly the way he says it on the bottom. But I don't know if I have a better flavor. Okay, so let's see a little more. Kihine odom kazeh, a person like this. Again, the attitude of this person. Vadai, certainly shetichbad olav ha'avodah lefnei boyrei koved gadol. Certainly, the service will become very heavy for him, a great heaviness. Again, so now he's going to say three things. Also, you can tell me if those three things somehow match up the previous three things. A person who wants to eat his eatings, in other words, his meals, in total yishuv, in total relaxation, v'amenucha, and relaxation. Like yishuv doesn't mean relaxation, but like, ceremony. I don't know, it's not ceremony, but
It's a repose.
Right, like yishuv adas, right? We say like without any rush, right? V'amenucha means rest, right? So that's one thing. Second, v'lishain shenasoi beloy toired, and he wants to sleep his sleep without toired, without disturbance, let's say. V'yimayin leleches im loy leito, and he doesn't want to walk unless he is walking slowly, in other words, strolling, right? So that's right. So that's this person. And similar things. Again, so I think maybe again, not sure if I'm right, but let's think again. Ramchal is writing in 1700s, right? So we're thinking about maybe 18th century aristocracy, right? 18th century aristocracy where there's their dinner time with their dinner jackets, with their with their walks in their gardens, and what was the other thing, and their beauty rests, right? So it's a whole lifestyle of that, what Oscar Wilde calls the great aristocratic profession of doing absolutely nothing, right? So it's a lifestyle of nothing. So maybe he's addressing the people of his time, and so he's describing the way the picture of utter laziness and self-indulgence is the picture of this aristocrat. Or maybe he's talking about to the Ukrainian peasant as well. I'm not sure. It could apply both equally. Some people are just maybe not on the same scale, but every one of us has a tendency towards the chill, right? I mean, look, here, Ramchal would see me drinking coffee whilst, learning about Zrizus. He probably smack me over the head, right? But in any case, but the Ukrainian peasant maybe is not necessarily, leisurely walking slowly in any time. Is constantly busy with harvest and whatever, and so his expression of laziness would be slightly different. I don't know. Maybe it's universal. Maybe these things are universal. When it's time to chill, you just want to leisurely stroll. But I just don't see it with Vaisa, not Vaisa, but Yankel, the farmer. I don't know if I could see him leisurely, stroll. Okay, but in any case, moving on. So anyway, such a person, a person wants to eat, with total rest, and sleep undisturbed, and to walk gingerly and leisurely. For such a person, it will be difficult to wake up early in the morning, or to abruptly cut off his su'udah before the mincha in the afternoon, or to run to do a dvar mitzvah, not learn. This is to walk out to do a dvar mitzvah unless the time is just right. Right, the time has to be just right. I have to be just in the right frame of mind to go and to go out and do the mitzvah. Right. So again, three things. I don't know how to. I'm assuming, naturally, I'm assuming that if he mentions three things and then another three things and another three things, those three things, each one should be parallel to one another. That's what I'm assuming. Could be I'm wrong, but they don't line up. Clearly, for example, over here, waking up early to go to shul probably coincides with sleeping undisturbed, right? Sleeping undisturbed is number 2 in the previous list, while waking up in the morning to go to shul is number 1 in this list. So clearly, it's not a what's the word?
Parallel.
Right. It's like a geometrically identical. Okay. Anyway, so kol shekain is not going to, right? So if he's not going to walk out to do a mitzvah unless he's in just the right frame of mind, kol shekain lemaher atzma, he's not going to rush himself like divrei mitzvah to do a mitzvah or the Talmud Torah or to go learn Torah. Right? Umishim margil atzma liminhagos ha'ele, and somebody who habituates himself to these types of practices, right? Practices of leisure. Einenu odin be'atzmai. That's a beautiful thing. He's not a master of himself. Right? So again, right? So we think, Western society thinks that who is a true master? The guy who's got the most leisure. That's the guy who's a true master, because he's got leisure, right? He's free. Says Ramchal. No, I'm sorry. It's the opposite of so. A person who is an attitude of leisure is seeking leisure. He is not. He is a slave to his leisure. He becomes habituated to his leisure, and he needs that repose. He needs that safety of the chill, and he needs his pampering. And he can't live anymore without his pampering. So he's no longer a master of himself. Like I'm no longer a master without my coffee. Because his will has been confined through the confinement of habit. That became his second nature. So the attitude of enjoyment habituates and becomes a need. It no longer even becomes a luxury, because initially a person does it as a way to have some luxury in his life, but it no longer becomes a luxury, then becomes a need, and then the person is no longer able to do other things because he now is bound to his luxuries. However, a person has to know that he's not to rest. He's not made for rest in this world, right? Just the opposite. He's born. Doesn't say it, but he's going to say later, right? He's here for effort and toil, for toil and effort. He has to practice in himself to be like a worker in the middle of a job. Eitzel Maskireim, by somebody who is their employer. Okay, Inyan Mashohoya Oimer, right? And just like Gemara says in Eruvin, Agiri de Yuma Anan. We are just day laborers. Right? We are day laborers. Right? So we're constantly, all of our time belongs to basically to another. We are day laborers. Just like we say that, right? By benching, Gemara and Bracha is really, we don't do it anymore, but the Gemara and Bracha says that the fourth Bracha of benching, which is only the Rabbanon, day laborers wouldn't say. Right? Because every second of their time belongs to their employer. Right? So the attitude, again, it's about attitude. This is much I agree with this note, is that, right, it's all about the attitude. The attitude has to be that you are what's the word? That you are every second counts, right? That you're constantly in a state of action. Right? So it's about that attitude. Another example. I don't know why. What does it mean? Two examples. I have to think about that. But the second example, and also similar to soldiers, right? They go out into battle in their arrangements, in their preparation. They're eating. They eat quickly. And their sleep is just what's the word? Temporary, or not temporary, transient. And they're constantly ready for time of battle. Right? So this is before, I don't know if Ramchal lived around standing armies already. Or standing armies, right? There were already practices and drills and whatnot. Right? That idea already existed, I think. So therefore, right, a soldier is constantly in a state of drill, constantly ready, right? Right, and this is what the famous pasuk that says a person was created for toil. Right, so he has two examples. One example is of a laborer, and the other example of a soldier. And I'm not sure what he needs both of those examples. A soldier, I think, is a fine example. What does a laborer bring that a soldier does not have? I'm not sure. But it's certainly, logically, on one hand, it's a little bit difficult to be constantly in a state of readiness. That's also like maybe an impossible task, right? I think if anything, I heard somewhere, I remember reading somewhere where somebody told me this, that in military strategy, sometimes, you try to, when, let's say you have two opposing forces, one tries to pretend like, okay, we're about to attack, and not really attack. So to give the other side to be constantly in a state of readiness, because once you're constantly in a state of readiness, then you stop being in a state of readiness. But on the other hand, maybe that's what God wants from us. We have to work on ourselves so much that we can be in a constant state of readiness for 120 years. I don't know. Biram Chal can pull it off, but he only lived 40 years, so maybe that's what. Okay, no, didn't say that. Okay, anyway, so. Now look at this line. And when a person habituates himself in this way, right? Where did we just have the word habituating? Right? Literally a paragraph above, right? The problem with the pleasure seeker is that he habituates himself to to pampering and luxuries. So, but now Ramchal is saying you have a new way. You should habituate yourself. When you habituate yourself in this way, what am I habituating myself? I'm habituating myself in the way of this habit. What's the habituating here? What becomes a habit that I have no habit, right? I think
the avoid this constant state of order is the actual.
But that means no habit, no, because the point of a soldier is you don't sleep. You need to jump, right? You don't be too jumpy because you have to be ready. Because we could also, if you think about it, crazy thing, Zrizus and Zrizus in certain ways are then become polar opposites, because if Zrizus is, I say jump, you jump, right? Zrizus says, I say, the Yetzer Hara says jump, you say 1 second, let me think about this one, right? So in a certain sense, you have it's a very tricky balance, right? For Zehirus, you need to slow down. For Zrizus, you need to speed up. And you need to be smart enough to figure out which koyach to apply when, right? In our dark world that possibly presents, they told us in Zehirus, right? That in our dark world, which possibly tell you, oh, this thing is a good thing. No, this thing is a good thing. And you don't really know, right? So we have this incredible avodas Hashem, and we're just, we're only at level 2 over here, right? And you have to have this incredible sense of pikus, right? A sense of, what's the word, wisdom. That is a wisdom to know the difference, right? To know which one is which. Anyway, so kashiyargil atzma el zeh, when you be right rogil, when you habituate yourself in this way, right? To be so again. On the one hand, it's a strange thing, but the essence of Zrizus, he said in the beginning, was gvura, right? Is the ability to overpower your laziness, right? Gibor kari, right? Yeah. Wake up in the morning, gvura, right? On the other hand, it's also flexibility, right? Especially like we see it in kids, right? Let's say a kid is playing, right? And the father comes and says, Johnny, go bring me something from the kitchen, right? It's very difficult for a child, I'm saying, just using it as a child because it's just a common example. For a grown-up, it's even more difficult to abruptly stop what they're doing now and refocus, right, on a totally different task. Very difficult to do, and it's actually much more harder for grown-ups because, right, let's say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Once you see these old people, once they're sort of used to a certain a certain structure and a certain way to do things, they can't recalibrate. They're like completely set in their ways, right? For a child, it's but the point is that when we are like on one track, we can't refocus and recalibrate to another track, right? So on the other hand, but that's what Zrizus demands, right? Zrizus demands you have to be gibor, you have to have strength to overpower your laziness, but you have to have enough flexibility to be able to on a trick to just switch and totally go in a different direction, right? So it demands both strength and total strength and total flexibility kind of at the same time, right? So again, when a person habituates himself in this way, then the avodah certainly becomes easy for him. Since, why does the avodah become easy for him? Because he's no longer missing hahazmona, right, readiness, and preparation towards it. Is that's why it's easy? What? Because I no longer need preparation for it? Okay, I mean, I'll take it, but I'm not fully sure what he's saying. But I guess part of, again, I think he's saying what I just said before, is that part of getting up and running to Ma'ariv is the switching process. It's not so much going to Ma'ariv, it's so much that switch. Okay, I gotta stop what I'm doing, go to shul. Stop what I'm doing, go there, right? So but once you eliminate that need to switch and prepare and to refocus, meaning you automatically refocus, the actual going to Ma'ariv part is not so hard. Meaning it's not so hard for somebody who went through obviously chapter 1 and went through Chovos Be'alomah, somebody who knows that he wants to go to Ma'ariv. It's the refocusing that's difficult. And so when a person is margil himself to be constantly, in the state of judo, whatever it is, then he can just go, Okay. And so it's in this way, our sages said, this is the way of Torah, bread with salt you will eat, and water in measurements you will drink, and on earth you will sleep. So right, so what is this saying? What is this describing? Right, this is describing a total distancing of oneself from pleasures and repose. Right. So again, also over here, he puts together in one menuchos in idunim in one thing, right? In other words, so going back to those previous three things, he seems to be saying it's really one thing, meaning some people seek rest, some people seek pleasures, but at the end of it all, the root is the same: self-indulgence, luxury, seeking luxury. Some people seek luxuries in their rest. Some people seek luxuries in their stakes or enjoyments. But at the end of it all, that attitude of luxury seeking is one thing. Okay, so that's number one. Should we? Where are we up to? Okay, let's read one more paragraph, I guess. Oid mimafsida Zrizus. Another thing that detracts from Zrizus, hu roiva pachad v'goydel hamoira min hazman v'toldoisav. Another thing that detracts from Zrizus is great fear, trepidation, and fear from the time and its results, meaning from natural occurrences, natural negative occurrences. Right? Toldos hazman. Zman is generally a description of something that happens in the world and within the natural way of the world. Right? Toldos hazman. Right? So this is the opposite. I think this is the opposite of the previous guy. Right? The previous guy is a pleasure seeker. This guy is a constant warrior. That's who we're talking about. The Jewish anxiety syndrome. This is the Woody Allen character right here. No? Kipam yira me'akor, because sometimes you'll be afraid of cold, or me'achoim, and sometimes from heat. Upam me'apagoim, sometimes you'll be afraid from pagoim, meaning something that will bad accidents. Ipam me'achaloim, or upam me'achaloim, and sometimes you'll be afraid of getting sick. Upam me'aruach, sometimes from wind. Kol kayotze bezeh, and meaning there's so many fears in our world, right? We live in a very unsafe world. We'd like to protect ourselves. We'd like to, and there's a natural inclination that we have to put ourselves in a bubble, right, and be totally safe, right? It probably stems. Again, I'm thinking out loud right now, but I'm assuming it stems from a desire of a human being to be in control of of all of the elements around him. We need to have control, and external factors that influence our life negatively, they take away our ability to have control. So that's also a detractor from Zrizus. Why is that a detractor from Zrizus? Because I'm just thinking about it. Because as soon as I decide, okay, I want to go to shul. Right, that's my mitzvah right now. I want to go to shul. Oh, but it's too cold. Do I need a coat? Do I need a scarf? Do I need this? I start contemplating all the different impediments that I have, or potential impediments that I have from going to shul. And by the time I wake up, by the time I get there, by the time it's already davening finished. So here, who inyan she Omer Shlomo Olav Shalom, Omar Otzel Shachal Baderech Ariben Archoves. A lazy person says, there's a shachal, which is like a young lion on the path, and an old lion is in the streets. Right. So again, since he connects this pasuk from Shlomo Melech, that's also, according to his understanding, is connected to laziness, which also I would not have said. I would not have said that somebody who is very fearful, right? There are people who are always anxious. Usually, more applies to women, I think, than to men. But right, women are usually like more. What's the word?
Protecting the house.
Right, overly cautious, right? But this is like, or safetyism. I think I heard this recent in some Jewish article. Safetyism. So this is the belief in overprotectiveness, right? But does it relate to laziness? I understand how if I'm lazy, I'm going to come up with excuses, but this seems different. I don't know. Okay. And our sages already protected kind of us. V'yechesu el hachatoim, and they attributed this midah to the sinners. Umikra Messiah d'ksiv, and they brought the verse that says Pachadu b'tzion chatoim, that in sinners are fearful in Tzion. Achas aroda chanefim, and the chanefim, which are I don't know how to say it. They say hypocrites, but chanefim just means padlizniki, whatever. Like, what do you call it? Chanifa, when you're like over
kissing out.
Yeah, right. So, but it's trembling seized the chanefim, the kiss ups. So one of the great sages told to his Talmud, when he saw that he was afraid, Chato'at, did you sin? Right? So this is when B'tochen needs to come in. B'tach b'Hashem, you have to trust in Hashem, b'asei toiv, and do good. Shchon eretz ure'ei emunah, dwell on the land and be a shepherd to faith. All right, so over here, basically, there's a necessary ingredient of bitachon. Which is okay. I don't know. Okay, we're not gonna. Let's leave this subject for next time. So let's pick it up with bitachon next time. There's a big machlokes is exactly what bitachon is, right? What is bitachon? There's the Hasidic bitachon. Let's put it in the Litvish bitachon, although it doesn't line up exactly like that. But right, the Hasidic bitachon is trust in Hashem, and everything's going to be good. Right? The Litvish bitachon is more like you do what you got to do, and whatever happens to you is good because it's from Hashem.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So all right, Shkoyach, thank you very much.